Welcome everyone to this tutorial demonstration. I've been asked a lot of times in class, how do you do a 3D sketch? How do you work with 3D sketches? 3D sketches are actually very complex entities that require the understandings of constraints and the understandings of where you are in the actual virtual universe. In order to have a good 3D sketch, a good understanding of positioning and location is extremely important. Might sound a little technical, however, what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and walk through how I would create this particular shape, which is, it's a sweep. However, it's a sweep which comes in at basically various angles. So it's a three-dimensional sketch and it's a three-dimensional object. There are many ways, and there's multiple ways of doing it. It is not specific to just simply Inventor. I'm using Inventor, but this process and this technique can also be used in programs such as SolidWorks, Solid Edge, NX. It is simply basically an understanding of how sketches and how they relate with each other within the context of 3D space. So I'm going to walk through a couple of ways of doing it. In particular, I'm going to walk through two ways. A straight out 3D sketch using the 3D sketch tools right off the bat, and the second one is the combination of using 2D sketches and using a nice little tool within the 3D sketch environment called Include in order to make the process quite a bit easier. So with that said, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the actual 3D sketch looks like. So I'm just going to edit that. So we have a bunch of numbers here, and I apologize, the view cube is on the side, so we'll just basically look at it. So, okay, so we have a horizontal leg which is set at 29 millimeters, 26 millimeters from the inclined. I have this set at 150 millimeters. It will have one single angle which will actually allow us to manipulate and reconfigure the sketch, and actually then in turn create a much more flexible three-dimensional object. Everything else is basically as is, but as you can see, it's in 3 dimensions. So we're going to start. I'll finish that off, and we're going to go and we're going to start. Method number 1 will be straight off using just simply a 3D sketch. So we're going to start with this 3D sketch. So in order to do that, let's start brand new. Start with a standard millimeter template. For myself, I have it set so it starts directly as a 2D sketch. I'm going to finish that sketch. I can delete or just simply ignore the sketch number 1. I usually delete it, that way it causes no confusion. And then I'm just going to go back into my 3D sketch environment. Now, before I do that, I'm also going to go to my origins, and I'm going to make the origin visible. So right there is the origin visible. I'll just move it over here. Alright, so let's go to 3D sketch. And we are going to start by creating a line. So we'll start by creating a line. The 3D sketch automatically locates the absolute. So we're going to start by clicking on the absolute. The green dot shows up. So I'm going to click on the absolute. I'm going to drag, as we can see, and I'm going to give it a 29 millimeter displacement. Hit enter. Drag up. 26 is my inclined length. I'm going to use my tab, and then that way it activates the angle. It's the same thing that we do in 2D sketching. I'm going to use the tab in order to go from one to the other. And if you take a look, if I hit tab again, it'll go back to the linear length. Hit tab, it'll go to the angular displacement. So I'm going to go into the angular displacement, and as indicated, I'm going to use 150 degrees. Hit enter. So now I have my angle. Is again, once again, I apologize for this. I'm going to use my view cube. The view cube is off screen at this point, but everybody knows what the view cube looks like. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to go, I'm still active in line. I'm just going to go to the view cube and I'm going to click the arrow that indicates the right, and then that will bring me to the right. Again, holding the roller wheel down, I'm just going to give myself a little bit more room. I'm going to scroll, or actually I'm going to pull my line to that direction. And in this case, I'm going to type in 30 millimeters, hit enter. All right. My next step, once again, go to the view cube. It's going to show the back. So let's move back here. I am purposely not going to type in the angle. What I am, however, going to do is I'm still going to type in the linear. So I'm going to type in 26, and type in 26, enter. Okay, and then I'm just going to drag and then type in 29. Okay, so I've got 29. I'm going to click on my little house symbol, bring it back to the isometric. I will close that off, and then hit enter, and now hit escape to kill the line. Now if I rotate this around, it's a little kinked, which makes sense because we didn't actually type in the actual value. The reason I didn't type in the actual value is because I want this to be driven by this. Okay? So in order to do that, rather than add a dimension, I am just simply going to go upstairs to my constraints. Here's my parallel. I'm going to select, it doesn't matter which one you pick first, select this one and select that one, and it will all automatically basically kink up. So now if I use my view cube, okay, so we still have some things that we need to do. The most important aspect is that if we take a look at it as straight, it's parallel, however it's kinked. The reason it's kinked is because it doesn't have it has too many degrees of freedom. This line and this line, they're parallel, but it has too many degrees of freedom. So we have to eliminate those degrees of freedom. How do we eliminate those degrees of freedom? We have this line actually follow the, or be parallel to the surface or the actual plane that is incorporated with this. Now we can use perpendicular, there's a lot of ways, but if you take a look up here, there's a really nice set of tools. So parallel to XY, parallel to the YZ, and parallel to the XZ. So if I take a look at my triad, which is back here, here is the green Y, here is the red X, which means it's the XY plane. Here's the XY plane. I'm going to select parallel to the XY plane, and then I'm just going to click on that line, and what it does is it snaps it right into place. So now if I take a look, okay, it is perfectly in line in all sections. So we're really doing really well. I'm going to hit escape. Okay, I'm going to add a couple more things. The first thing I'm going to add here is I'm going to add a point. I'm going to add a point at the exact center of that line right here. It can be anywhere. It could be up here. I'm just picking it here just for convenience. And remember, the midpoint the glyph will always be green. So if I click on that, there is the green point, and we will see why I did that in a couple of seconds. All right, so it looks good, but I'd like to have a couple more blends. The biggest blend that I do want to have is basically, I want to put fillets. Okay, fillets in 3D Sketch in all softwares have different names. SolidWorks uses the typical fillet, which is okay. Solid Edge also uses the same concepts within the aspects of 3D sketching. Inventor, what it does is that it perceives that within a 3D sketch, it almost thinks that the line is a cube or some sort of a wire. So if that's the situation, the nomenclature is a little different. So what we're looking for, we're not looking for fillet, we're actually looking for something called bend. So here's bend. Okay, so the bend that we're going to use, I'm going to use 5 millimeters. We can change that. I'm just leave it at 5 millimeters. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to select the edges, and it will put in the 5 millimeter bends, just like that. Okay. Now they're all interlinked. So what that means, and how do I know that they're all interlinked? If you take a look, there's only one 5 here, which does not have the FX attached to it. The FX indicates that it is basically linked. So what that means is that if I change the 5, say to 10, everything changes as is. Let's split hairs, we'll make it 8. Okay? Alright, so now we have our bends. So now we have our 3D sketch, which is fine. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to convert that by creating a sweep. So I'm going to finish my sketch. Now I want a profile. Now that profile I can put it anywhere that I want, but it needs to be integrated or related to the sketch. And this is the reason why I put that point. That point acts as a placeholder, because now I'm going to go into plane. I'm just going to select the point that I created. I'm going to pick on that line, and it creates a perpendicular plane. As we know, we can now sketch on a perpendicular plane. We can sketch on a flat plane. Okay, so I'm going to click and create a sketch. I always do this. It's not necessary, but I always do this. I go project geometry, and I project that point. Why? It creates a positive anchor. Okay, I'm going to use a center rectangle, 2 points. Just going to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to pick, there's the green dot, click on the green dot, drag, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this, I'll make this 4, okay? Now, what I can do also is I can hit tab, and then it'll go to the vertical dimension, which I also do want it to go, and make that 3. Enter. So now I have my little rectangle. Okay. I'm going to put some fillets on it. I'm just going to zoom into here. Okay, 2 is huge. I'm just going to make this a 1. Okay, so 1. Okay. Just like so. Alright, so now I have my profile. I can finish my sketch. Once again, just to make it a little easier to see, I'm going to select that, right mouse button, turn that invisible. And then the last thing I'm going to do is do my sweep. So here's my sweep. Okay, so now it found the only closed loop, which is right there. Now even though this is a closed loop, it doesn't consider that as a profile. Why? Because it's not on a flat plane. Remember, it has to be a flat plane to be considered as a closed loop profile. So now there's the profile. All I need to do now is just select the path and click OK, and there is my part. Okay, now here's why I made a few additions rather than just adding angles. If I go back here, here's my 3D sketch, right mouse button. Okay, so the right mouse button, I'm just going to go to 3D sweep and show my dimensions. There are all my dimensions. Okay, so now here's 150. I'm going to double click on 150. I'm going to type in 90. Okay. So it didn't work on that one. Let's just see what happens. Let's go edit sketch. See what happens. Or actually, let's make it 120. Okay. So what gives? So let's see what we have. So if I delete that, okay, see if it moves. It actually, yeah, it's moving. It's not moving the way that I want it to, but let's try this once more. Okay, so let's put it on this side this time. Okay, let's make that 135. Alright, yeah, for some weird reason it didn't like that. I believe it had some interference or some anomaly there, but it doesn't matter. So we're gonna just change this to 135, and let's click OK, finish the sketch, it updates. Let's try the display dimensions again. So here's show dimensions. Let's double click on here. Let's make that 90. OK, there it is. We're going to go upstairs, or we're going to go up. We're going to go update. So we're going to hit the update, and now it does what it's supposed to. And as you can see, there's a bit of an issue here, but it gives you, again, an idea of what is going on. Okay, so that is using 3D Sketch straight off the bat. What we're going to do next is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to incorporate 2D with 3D. All right, so let's, once again, I'm going to start a new, okay, and this time I'm going to keep my 2D sketch, or actually I'm going to keep my 2D sketch panel, but I'm going to start by creating the following. Once again, 29, drag, make that 26, tab, and I'll make this 125 for this particular instance. Okay, let's hit escape. Alright, so there is my first sketch. Typical, very typical. Okay, now this sketch is on the XY plane, which is right there. Okay, I'm going to highlight the XY plane, and then I'm just going to go into planes, and then I'm just going to push down the left mouse button and just simply drag in that direction. I could have dragged in this direction also. It's easier to drag it on this one just because there's more of the screen. I want that plane to be exactly 30 millimeters, just like the first example. So negative 30 in this case. Check. Okay, so there's the plane. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that sketch, or in that plane. I'm going to put in a sketch, and then I'm going to use project geometry. I'm going to project that, and I'm going to project that. Okay? Let's finish our sketch. Okay, and let's make that invisible. Perfect. Okay, so now we have two sketches, but they're pretty much disconnected from each other. So we need to reconnect them. Now we can connect them with another sketch. That's fine. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the 3D sketch panel, which is right here. So 3D sketch panel. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to use this. This is the include geometry. This is what makes it a little easier. So if I click on include geometry, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on all those lines, and what that does is that it puts those into the 3D sketch world. Okay, just to make it easier, I'm just going to go to the my history tree. Here is sketch number 1. I'm going to click right mouse button. I'm going to turn the visibility off, and sketch number 2, which is right here, do the same thing. Okay, so now I have those two, the originating sketches, invisible. I'm just going to go to line, and I'm going to pick that point, and right mouse button, OK, enter again, that point, enter, click OK. So now I have all of these. Okay, I'm going to go back and use my bend. So there's the bend. So I'm going to use that, and I'll pick that corner, I'll pick that corner, that corner, pick this corner, that, and that. Perfect. Okay, so there it is. Once again, I'm going to use my point. I'm going to find the absolute center, which is right there. Let's finish our sketch. Okay, let's create a work plane perpendicular to that. Just like that. Okay, I'm going to click on the work plane, make a sketch. And as always, I'm just going to project that point. Okay, so same thing, center. So there's the center, pick, and I'm going to do the exact same dimensions. So it's going to be 4, tab, 3, tab, or actually enter. Okay, let's zoom in. Okay, we're going to put in our fillet. So we'll put in our fillet of 1 pick. Okay, close. All right, we'll turn the visibility of the plane off. Okay, and once again, what we're going to do is we are going to sweep it. There is the closed loop. There's the 3D path. Click OK. There's the part. Okay, now what I want to do, however, is I want to make sure that I can control the angle. Now, to do that, this is why creating it in 2D sketches becomes extremely important, because now I can go here, right mouse button, and I can go edit. Now, if I double click and I make, say, let's say I make this 150. Okay, so that's that. Let's finish the sketch. There it is. Let's go back and do the exact same thing, but this time let's make it really awkward. We'll make it 85. Enter. There's 85. Finish. Done. So what it does is that in reality, using 2D sketches and then incorporating them into 3D sketches makes them much more stronger, because we have the ability to control 2D sketches very, very precisely. By using a 2D sketch and incorporating that into a 3D sketch, it makes everything so much easier at times. It also makes it easier, for example, to change, say, the width. So right now that's at 30. Let's say for some weird reason we wanted to change that to, say, 18. There's 18, there it is. So it's extremely well controlled. Now, the 3D sketch, we can do the exact same thing, the dedicated 3D sketch. However, remember, we need to also make sure that that the driving sketches, or the entities themselves, are perfectly parallel and in line with the plane that you want it to be. Okay? So, hopefully, this was a useful little example and useful tutorial. It's a very simple setup, but it creates some really cool outputs. So, with that said, I'm going to end the video. Have a great day, and we will see you on the next video.